Anyone who it says anybody who commits the act of shirk, which is, however, the scholars say that this aspect of shirk, the depth of it, and what is in people's hearts. Hold on a second. Look, when you start talking about my religion, when you don't know, at least have the intellectual respect of asking me what I believe. Okay, I'm interested in facts here, yeah? Is there any evidence you have... One second, Abbas. Is there any evidence you have that supports your claim that there were people living in Mecca who were waiting to throw idols away? Do you have any evidence for that? Hold on a second. It's a very important point.
No, it's not.
Because hold on a second.
Why is this not an important point?
It's a very important point. Because from his own scriptures, he says that you are the one that we've been waiting for, and I wish I was younger. To support you and help you, because they will turn you out. It's your subjective reasoning that tells you that this is how God should have done something.
He's going to burn us in hell. He's going to burn us in hell.
Hold on a second.
He's going to burn in hell.
Fire! Would have no problem being convinced by it, but as soon as you bring God into the picture, or Islam into the picture, or religion into the picture, now suddenly it can't be true. Now the excuses come in. Now the flawed rationale comes in. Now the debunking of evidence comes in the most flimsiest of ways. And I think that's a human trait that we all have. You know?
Yeah, but that can work both ways. You can do the same argument, so you believe because of the stuff. You're ignoring problems, things that should otherwise disprove Islam because you want to believe.
I agree, that can happen.
It can work both ways.
Yes, of course it can. You're absolutely right. It can work both ways. But, you know, that is why the Quran says, if you speak the truth, provide your evidence. You provide your evidence, I provide my evidence, and upon the evidence, we go wherever the evidence takes us. So, it doesn't say, believe just because it's from God, you have to believe it. No. Allah says, if you are truthful, provide your evidence. Say what it is that you wish to say. And let's base our opinion upon not our predispositions, not our hunches, not our love for something or our hatred for something, but upon the evidence. I would accept that.
Okay, I'll give you an argument against any God anyway.
Sorry?
I'll give you my main argument against any God, against the religion anyway. Not one God, religion.
Yes.
If there's a God who's going to burn us in hell for not worshipping Him.
Yes.
Burn us in hell, which is no serious.
Yes.
He's not going to send one prophet to one part of the world.
Yes.
He's going to send thousands of prophets all over the world.
Yes.
Are they going to succeed?
Yes.
Islam, all other religions.
Come closer. What's your name? Chris.
All the religions.
Nice to meet you, Chris. Bruv, come closer. You can be part of the talk, the discussion.
All religions.
Yes.
They all disagree with each other.
Yes.
They do not agree, and they should do.
Yes.
The basics at least, basic parts.
Yes.
Because there should be thousands of prophets, all succeeding, saying the same basic message. Islam's very simple. It's one God, heaven, hell, resurrection. Very simple.
Yes.
That should be universal.
Yes.
So if people travel around the world, they should find the same religion.
Yes.
They don't.
So that's your reason for denying God? Is that what you're saying?
That's my main argument for denying any particular religion.
Let me ask you something. Because this is what we believe. And I want to ask you whether this is a possibility or whether it's an impossibility. Could it be that the narrative in Islam, which is Allah says, we do not punish a people until we send them a warner. Hold on, let me finish. So we believe that Allah sent a warner to every people everywhere around the world.
Yes.
Now, could it be that human beings, because unfortunately they are inherently corrupt, have changed those messages, and Allah then sent down another warner to correct the mistakes that were being made. And they then themselves, through their corruption, through their deception, through their greed, through lies or whatever, again, changed that message. So Allah then once again sent down another messenger. Now in Islam, this is what we believe. This is what we believe. Why is that not possible?
Because God's smarter than we are.
That's not what I asked you.
He would not choose prophets who are going to fail. He would choose people who could, and with his help, would succeed. He would not send failures.
But you're now applying your reasoning.
No, this is
but hold on a second.
This is the perfect God.
No, hold on a second.
This is the God who's going to burn people in hell.
But you are applying...
No.
Hold on a second.
This is basic logic.
No, it's not. It's basic logic to you.
Yes.
Right. It is not empirical, analytical, and without your own take on your subjective reasoning. Hold on a second. It's your subjective reasoning that tells you that this is how God should have done something.
If he's going to burn us in hell, he's going to burn us in hell.
Hold on a second. He's
going to burn in hell. Fire! Are you going to tell me, all these failed prophets failed. All these prophets failed.
So why don't you calm?
Why would they fail?
Why don't you calm down and let's have
I'm calm.
Let's have look because
why would they fail?
Generally,
God would know how to not fail.
Look, my point.
He would get it right.
My point to you is this.
He would not fail.
My point to you is this.
You're telling me God failed.
No, I'm not saying that to you. No, what I'm saying to you is this. You are applying your reasoning.
Yes, reason.
Hold on a second. Your subjective reasoning as to what you feel was the best way to send down this message. Now, I'm telling you that we believe in the Quran, which tells us that God sent a warner to all people. And it's the inherent corrupt nature of human beings. Well, and that is where the choice lies.
No.
That is where the choice lies.
This is a terribly weak excuse. It's a terribly weak excuse.
No, it's not a weak excuse.
It's a terribly weak excuse.
Well, look, the reality is this. You can apply strength and weakness to something subjectively as you please. No, hold on a second. But it does not make it inherently weak or strong because you say so or I say so. Right? Number two, we believe that Allah says that He placed within every heart a fitrah, a conscience, to recognize the Creator. That is why...
So that's why
hold on a second. Hold on a second. It's not God that fails.
Yes, it is.
It is we. It is we. It is we.
Are good.
Well,
most people are good.
We believe that this fitrah, this conscience...
Most are good.
We believe...
Why does it fail with the good people?
We believe...
Why don't the good people believe?
Okay, we believe that this fitrah, this conscience... Even if you're an atheist, listen to what I'm saying first. Look, if you don't hear what I'm saying...
I've heard it.
No, you haven't heard me yet. This inherent conscience that we have within our hearts guides us even if no message reaches us. As to, if I kill that animal and cause it pain, that's probably a bad thing to do. If I kill my brother for his goat, it's probably a bad thing to do. Nobody has to teach us that. There's something inherent within us. There's something inherent within us that tells us that that is wrong. And that is the fitrah that we believe that Allah places in every heart. Now, if you, as a human being, hold on a second, if you as a human being now impose your own greed and your own desires, hold on a second, or your arrogance, to fight against that fitrah, that conscience, and then you do bad things, don't blame God. Blame yourself.
I always blame myself if I do bad.
Right.
I always blame myself.
That's what we should do.
I do not blame anybody else.
That's what we should do.
It's me. But I can have empathy. I can understand other people's pain. It's part of my mind.
You're a sensitive person.
That's why I hurt somebody else, I feel bad about it.
Yes.
Because I don't understand it.
Where does that come from?
My ability to understand.
Where does that come from?
My brain.
Your brain. So it's a physical manifestation of ethics and morals from matter in your brain.
That's what brain is.
Okay, so consciousness and that ability to decipher good and evil or good and bad, you're saying is just a physical component of your brain.
Yes, how the brain works.
Okay. Consciousness is something that is widely and hugely debated today.
Yeah.
You're claiming it comes from a physical manifestation of matter.
We have something like 1 billion neurons in our brains. The only reason they're there is because that's how the brain works. If you damage the brain physically, you damage the mind.
Right. So
if you take drink and drugs, you damage the mind.
What benefit?
Whatever you do that affects this, how this works.
Yes.
Damages the mind.
So what benefit is there from a point of view of just matter to be kind or just or fair to anybody? What's the point?
Because it helps us survive.
Well, how does it help you survive?
Because
to be unkind, if I pick his
to other people are nice to me.
Right.
We then work together. My chances of survival in a very harsh world are improved.
Well, so if I, for example, commit mass fraud, steal £10 million from the government, and go and spend the rest of my life in the Bahamas, is that wrong?
Yes.
Why?
Because you hurt lots of other people.
Sorry?
You hurt the majority.
Well, how?
Because you've hurt them, you're taking their money.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say to you is that inherent belief of good, of doing good, and not hurting people. There's no survival of the fittest.
It does work for that.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
No, not at all.
That helps him survive.
It helps me survive.
Individuals, parasites. You know, yes, people would get away with it. People do get away with it.
I could end up with 100 women and have 10,000 kids.
Generally,
right? With all that money.
Generally, for most of society, we need to cooperate for society to survive, to work. And some people abuse that. Some people
my point to you is this, though.
But the majority don't.
But my point to you,
society would fail.
But you see, my point to you.
The majority have to cooperate.
My point.
Society's work.
Right. My point to you is this, though.
Some people get away with doing bad.
My point to you is that to have that notion of survival and reproduction, if I take a huge amount of money from the government, steal it, go and procreate and have lots and lots of kids, my genes get passed on. I have lots of kids.
That sounds like survival.
That's survival of the fittest.
But
okay, a kind
that will stop
to find out whether your neighbour is hungry.
You have to look after your children. Because if you don't look after them, they die. You have to sensationally look after your own group.
Look, reality is we're moving into many different areas which are useless, right? The main issue here is this. Your point was that you feel because God did not send a prophet, and for each nation that message was not preserved, that means God has failed.
Yes.
And what if failure and success are in relation to the one who is conducting that activity and how they assess failure or success? Not how you or I attribute failure or success. God's success was to send the warner. And God's success was to give, hold on a second, God being successful was to give free will to those people to do whatever they want after they receive the warner. That, in God's eyes, is success. Now, in your eyes, it might not be. But that's not a reason to deny God.
There is no evidence these warners ever existed.
There's a lot of evidence.
No evidence that ever existed.
There's a lot of evidence.
No, there's not.
There's lots of evidence.
There's nothing. There's lots of people going around pretending to be prophets, all contradicting each other, sending different messages in different countries in different parts of the world. We do not get evidence from the same people, prophets saying the same basic message.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If I was your neighbour, one morning I wake up and I say, I'm a prophet of God. Believe me, don't eat swine anymore, don't drink alcohol anymore, don't gamble anymore, get married before you have relationships, fast in the month of Ramadan, you have to go Hajj at least once in a year. What would you say to me? Yes. You'd say, are you crazy, man? Right. Nobody would follow me, would they? Nobody would, right? Nobody would, right? Right. So clearly, those people that came down with the message they came down to have millions of followers, there must have been something pretty special that they came down with to convince all of these people. And not only, and hold on a second, not only the people of that time, but for generations to come, including academics, including doctors and surgeons and scientists, convinced by that message, by that man 14 centuries ago. It must have been pretty special, right?
That's also true of Hinduism, Buddhism,
yes.
Christianity.
I agree.
You think Christians are going to burn in hell for eternity?
Who?
Christians.
Who believes that? No, it
anyone who thinks that Jesus is the Son of God,
yes,
will burn in hell for eternity.
Anyone who it says anybody who commits the act of shirk, which is, however, the scholars say that this aspect of shirk, the depth of it, and what is in people's hearts. Hold on a second. Look, when you start talking about my religion, when you don't know, at least have the intellectual respect of asking me what I believe or what the scholarly opinion of something is. Because, for example, okay, it's in the Quran that you can't eat swine. Can I eat swine?
Can if you want. It's up to you.
No. Religiously, am I allowed to eat swine ever?
If you're going to starve to death,
yes. Is that in the Quran?
Yes.
No, it's not.
It says if you're going to, there's something about if you're turning to starvation.
That's in the Sunnah.
You can.
That's in the Hadith.
No, it's in the Quran.
The Hadith says if for 3 days and 3 nights you haven't had any food and you need to survive, you may consume that amount that will allow you to survive. Hold on a second. So, does the Quran say that we have to pray?
Yes.
Does it say how we have to pray?
Not really.
No. Well, that comes from the Hadith, the example of the Prophet. So you see, in Islam, the Quran is from God. We accept that, the literal word of God. How we interpret the Quran is through the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ, his understanding given to him by God. And of course, how the scholars will look at what Prophet Muhammad did and said, and how that then transpires and how we should behave, what we should do. It's not just because we find a line in the Quran that we take it with the literalism, because it may be specific, it may be time specific, it may be nation specific. It might not apply in that way to all nations or all people. It may be very specific about a particular people.
Okay.
So that's how we interpret the Quran. But my point to you was this, look, you say that Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, we don't regard that these religions did not get messengers. So Hinduism, in its core teachings, in the oldest scriptures, the Vedas, it says God is one, God is absolute, God is eternal, there is no statue or no likeness of God, which is very similar to what the Quran says about God. Now, what has manifested in their actions after that is that they've made statues. They've made these different gods. But in their core teachings, it doesn't say that. So to me, hold on a second. To me, it sounds very like that they may well have had a messenger who told them God is one, God is absolute, that there is no likeness or a statue of God, and to worship nothing other than God. Many of the practices of Buddhism, for example, of deep meditation, of connection to, what I'm trying to say to you is...
Just look at the stuff that's similar to all the stuff that's different. Because they think, oh look at this different religion, that's similar, that's part of Islam or the Prophet.
No, that's not.
Do that.
My point is not that.
All this stuff is wrong. All stuff is different.
My point to you is this, that even the Christian, even the one who believes in the Trinity, he still says, I believe in one God.
Yeah.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Or she? They don't say, I believe in 3 gods. They find a way through linguistic gymnastics to make those 3 fit into one, but they still claim that they worship one God, because they know to worship 3 would be blasphemous. The Jew, his first commandment, O Israel, your Lord, your God is one. For the Muslim, La ilaha illallah, there is no deity, there is nothing worthy of worship except the one and true God. That's it.
But then,
these are the same messages.
But Islam's senses comes from Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
No,
they're connected.
No, it comes. We believe that all of the faiths in their original form. Hold on a second.
It's still that problem of the original form. We have no evidence for that original form.
But we do. I'll tell you why we do. I'll tell you why we do. Whenever anybody makes a claim We sent down warners. We sent down messengers. We taught the people that which they did not know. We taught them that God was one, God was absolute. They transgressed. They joined partners with God. When anybody makes those claims, the first thing that you must do as a rational human being is validate the claim.
Yeah, there's no evidence for it.
Hold on a second. You validate the claim, don't you? Right. So what you do is you say, okay, this Quran claims that it's from God.
Yeah.
What's the evidence? It's a fair question. The Quran claims to be a miracle. What's the evidence to say that this is a miracle? It's a fair question. Now, being born in this country, you get to adolescence, you're 15, 16 or whatever, and you do ask these questions that, look, my parents tell me that this is from God. They say it's a miracle of God. Why should I really believe it if I'm not convinced by the evidence? I believe that the Quran has a multifaceted, evidential process that a logical, rational human being can look at and can come to a conclusion, even if he or she does not accept it and adhere to it, that this book could not... Hold on a second.
I was not impressed.
Hold on a second. And if a group of people would have come together and tried to create it, which is what the Quran claims as well, they could not have reproduced it. Now, hold on a second. Now, I, through my own investigation, now you could say that's subjective, came to the conclusion, through reasoning and through this evidence, that I was convinced that this Quran could not have come from a human being in the 7th century. Now, what are those evidences? One of them, I believe, is the linguistic constructs of the Quran. Let me explain what those are. Hold on a second. Look, I'm going to produce for you... Hold on a second. Before you nod your head and before you are already convinced that it doesn't exist, at least hear me out.
Because I don't speak Arabic.
No, it's not about... It's not about Arabic. Look, it's not... No, it's not. This man, for example, one of the evidences that I cite often is a man called Professor Raymond Farin, a white man, American, studied in Georgetown University in America. He decided that he was going to do his major in classical Arabic poetry. Now, us Asians often go into accountancy, we go into becoming a doctor, we're very lazy when it comes to these very obscure, distant type of activities or learning processes like languages and foreign languages. Anyway, he decided that he was going to study Arabic poetry, classical Arabic poetry. Somebody said to him, why don't you look at the Quran? Because the Quran, even though it's not poetry, but it actually rhymes and it feels very much like poetry.
Where there's rules, don't run, don't walk, don't chew.
So he studied the Quran.
And
he learned Arabic,
whatever.
Classical Arabic. He studied the Quran without anybody speaking to him about Islam. He accepted Islam on the evidence that he found about the way the grammar is constructed within the Quran. He said it was impossible for a man or a group of men to have orally transmitted this in this way. Impossible. And so he accepted Islam. Now, hold on a second.
A few problems.
Yes.
First of all, poetry has a structure.
Yes.
It's in the nature of poetry.
Yes.
So it's going to be a structure there anyway.
Yes.
Also, people see patterns.
Yes.
But even if they don't exist.
Yes.
There's always patterns you can find.
Yes.
So if you're not careful, you can find loads of patterns, inevitably. So it's been done.
I'll tell you why your argument is. I'll tell you why you don't.
It's a case of numerology.
Yes.
And somebody looked at the book Moby Dick, a book about a whale, and they found loads of structure in it.
Yes.
It's not a poetry book. They found structure in it.
Yes.
Numerology. Because inevitably you find some structure.
Yes.
So it's very possible he fooled himself into finding things that aren't really there.
You see,
don't matter, or they're by accident.
With all due respect, you don't. With all due respect, a thesis, years of work, you have an opinion about it, without even seeing what he was actually saying, what he was talking about.
Well,
you heard the word structure, and from that you inferred what he's talking about,
yes.
which you don't know, and you've made a conclusion.
but
what I'm trying to explain to you is it's a lot more complicated than that, clearly. Yeah, a lot more complicated. Trust me. If you have time, and if you are truly interested, then I would advise you to at least look into it before you come to a conclusion. His example is about the second chapter in the Quran called Surah Baqarah. 286 verses, revealed over 10 years, orally, no editorial process. A verse comes down, something happens. Some man behaves in a certain way, and a verse is revealed. The Prophet utters the verse immediately. The companions memorize the verse. The Prophet tells them, this verse is pertaining to this chapter. This verse is pertaining to that chapter. It comes after this verse. This verse comes after that verse. 286 verses, revealed over 10 years, while simultaneously other chapters are being revealed. Verses are coming down, and he's telling them where to slot those verses. That's the first thing. The Surah Baqarah, orally transmitted, without any editorial process, and he finds that the first section of the chapter and the last section of the chapter are linked very closely. The second to last, the third to last, the fourth to last. The fifth one has a unique message in itself, tying in the entire surah, the entire chapter. Within that chapter of 286 verses, Allah uses the word middle once. I have chosen for you the middle ground. In other words, don't go to extremes. Don't go to extremes on this side. Don't go to extremes on the other side. He uses the word once, middle. Road, middle ground. Where does that verse appear? On the 143rd verse of the 286, right down the middle. Within that chapter of Surah Baqarah, there are other concentric patterns of other verses or groups of verses that are also concentrically linked together. Now, the complexity within the structures he found to be so complex that for an individual to claim that this was random, or somehow by memory he constructed this over 23 years, he was convinced that that was impossible. And so on that basis alone, he accepted Islam. Now, to you, that might not be a convincing argument. You might say, well, that's all a coincidence. But this is an academic who studied it for, hold on a second, for many years, and upon that he's convinced of that structure.
First of all, 143 is not the middle of 286. You can't have a middle of 286. It's 285. That's the middle.
Is that really your point?
That's one point, yes. Another point is you've got 114 verses.
But you see, look,
114 chapters. If one of those has in the middle,
are you really going to apply that argument to me?
Yes.
That the 143rd verse is not the middle of 286, and you think that's therefore it's not in the middle?
The problem is, with all these things, with numerology, you can hunt around these little patterns, and you find them. You always find them.
You find certain patterns.
Always find them.
You find certain patterns. I accept that, but it's the very complexity of those patterns and the numeracy of those patterns that, on balance of probability, render random events. Hold on a second. Random. Let me finish. Random events constructing that complexity on balance of probability. That's what makes it impossible. It's not about finding the odd pattern here or there. It's the frequency of those patterns and the accuracy of those patterns that render it impossible on the balance of probability. Look, my friend, if it was anything else I was convincing you about, not God and not religion, you probably wouldn't have a problem with it. The problem with people is they only have a problem with this weight of evidence when it's about God and about religion. Anything else, TV, what operation to have, which is the best surgeon to save my life. We have no problem with finding out those people on the balance of probability. We're convinced this surgeon has got a 100% record with over 10,000 patients for this operation. You'll go in there relaxed. And if there's a guy who's had 10 operations with 5 failures, you're going to be petrified. Why? Because your rationale tells you on balance of probability, this is dangerous, and that is a sure thing. But when it comes to God, my friend, when it comes to Islam, when it comes to religion, people want to deny it because, oh, it's 143rd. That's not in the middle because it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument. This is an academic who spent years.
And how many educated academics are there? How many Hindu academics? How many Buddhist academics?
The point is this.
There are lots of academics of all religions.
Then look at the evidence. Look at the
people who have left Islam. Academics who have left Islam.
Look at the evidence that they provide for leaving Islam. And then look at the evidence of those who say they were wrong because of X, Y, and Z. And then as a rational human being, weigh up the evidence and go wherever the evidence takes you. Somebody joining something or leaving something does not validate or invalidate that subject, does it? That's not a logical or rational argument, is it? That's just looking for excuses, not to even look into something.
I've looked into it.
My point to you is this, though. But your arguments that you apply to trivialize something are just superficial. They don't mean anything.
I don't know how good that is.
Well, then the job for you.
I don't know how bad some other
arguments. But that's a very good comment you've just made there. You see, I don't know how good that evidence that you have provided me today, Abbas, is. So hold on a second. So what I'm going to do, as a balanced, rational, reasonable human being, is I'll at least look at the evidence and I'll see what it has to say and I'll make my own mind up as to whether it is in fact extraordinary or it's not extraordinary. Look, one of the other things you have to understand is this. When the Quran is revealed, as I said to you, if I said to you tomorrow, I'm a prophet, follow me, fast, pray, don't have alcohol anymore, don't gamble, don't do this, you'd say, you're a lunatic, man. You need to go to a mental asylum. Right, but here comes a man in the 7th century, peace be upon him, who says exactly that to the people. You know, we know that there's a lot of, hold on a second, we have a big drinking culture here. We produce alcohol, but from tomorrow, guys, no more alcohol. Oh, and you know what? We're big gamblers, and we're big womanizers. No more women until you get married. And no more gambling. Oh, and by the way, you got to be hungry for 30 days at least in the year. No food, no drink, no nothing. In the heat, in the sun. Oh, and by the way, the pagans that want to fight you, take up arms and defend your right, defend yourself. If it's your brother attacking you, you have to defend your life and defend your family against him. And suddenly these people who had this tribal connection, this lifestyle. Yes.
One of the key things for the people of Mecca was the pagans, was the statues with the idols. Yeah. The whole city of Mecca's commerce was based on idolatry. Yeah. The fact that the tribes would bring their...
this is how they made their money.
This is what they... So you're now going to so he's going into a society as well, telling them how they make their money. Can't do that.
It's all wrong. You can't do that anymore.
So I go into the Chamber of Commerce and say, no more interest, mate.
So all these idols that bring in all these thousands of people, all the caravans, trade routes.
So the key question has to be is this.
And all this power that all the Meccans have because of those idols.
Exactly.
You know what? We can't worship those anymore. Destroy all of them. You have to believe in the unseen God.
Yeah, so the question
the one that you can't see.
So
and now the question that has to be asked:
why do they believe him?
Right.
There's also going to be lots of people in Mecca who are good people who are going to realise that this pagan stuff is basically a money-making scam, which it probably is. So there's lots of people who know that. There's people making money out of it and know it.
The point.
No, that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply.
Also be aware.
That doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. No, what you just said doesn't apply. I'll tell you why.
That's why some people follow him.
I'll tell you why it doesn't apply. I'll tell you why it doesn't apply.
Not.
Because it's the people themselves bringing their idols. Yeah.
Some of them will be good people who will know.
No, you missed it. You missed the point I said.
The people will know it's
You missed the point. You missed the point. You missed the point. If you're saying to this, if this is what you're saying, is the Meccans put all these idols in the Kaaba and told the people, listen, you should come and worship them. Your point stands. stands, okay? But there were surrounding tribes who brought their idols to the Kaaba to worship, to do their pilgrimage. And whilst they were there, obviously, the Meccans who were merchants would trade with them. And merchants would come, and this was their society. All right. Now, the question has to be asked. Sorry, please. I don't want to jump in. I'm not going to too much.
No, that's fine.
I'm going to get out of the way.
No. You can't.
No. But the point here is this. All those things he listed all the things, isn't it? You can't womanize, you can't drink, you can't do that, and you can't do the thing that makes you money. The question needs to be asked.
There's lots of people in Mecca.
No, but the question needs to be asked.
Let me address that.
But the question needs to be asked.
Yes.
Why did the people believe him?
They didn't.
They didn't.
Most did. A few did. Most didn't.
Right. Who believed him?
A few people did. Friends.
Why though?
Because there's always people who know it's a con.
What's the con? What's the con?
It's a money-making scam.
What's the con?
I'll tell you why you're wrong there as well, though.
I'll tell you. It's whole money.
So tell me the other.
People will know.
Who's the people?
The people.
Because you're making all these assumptions
Some people,
here.
Look, everybody's different.
Do you have any evidence of what you're saying?
No, Hamza. I'll address that as well. Look, you're saying that there are some good people
Yeah.
who would recognise that this man is saying something that's good and they will adhere to it, right?
Especially on the pagans.
That's what you're saying.
No,
right?
that's not what he said.
No, that's what he's saying. That is what he's saying. Okay, even there you're wrong. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why you're wrong. Because alcohol wasn't forbidden for those people, even though ones that were good.
I'm not saying about
No.
I didn't read that.
Womanizing was not forbidden for those people, even though they were good. They might have been good people, but they were womanizing, drinking.
So what?
My point is that in today's modern day intellectual age, when humanity knows that alcohol is damaging to my body. Hold on a second. You're not listening to my. Listen to my argument.
They always do.
Listen to my argument first. Even today, where humanity has now been convinced that there is more harm in alcohol than there is good for my body, yet intellectuals, scientists, politicians, doctors, surgeons still drink, and many of them drink to excess.
I don't.
Hold on a second. Even though they know that physically it's damaging to them. Now, in those days, my point to you is this. Your point is flawed because, I'll explain to you why. Because even the people, like for example, Abu Bakr, the second Caliph, Umar Khattab, radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him. He loved good clothes and he loved that lifestyle. What makes him then accept a religion where now he gives away all of his wealth? He has 14, 15 patches on his clothes covered in mud while he walks into Jerusalem when the keys are handed to him in Jerusalem. What makes a man who lived in extravagance all his life? And at one point he goes to kill the Prophet Muhammad because he says that this man is creating rifts between our close community, our sects. And so on the way to killing him, he accepts Islam. Why? So there must have been something profound, not just some kind words, that transformed a barbaric society that were killing one another for feuds that often lasted for generations, that drinking for excess, womanizing to excess, burying their daughters alive because they were regarded to be inferior. Within a century, they come to the doorsteps of Spain, to the east, to China, and to Africa. And today, 14 centuries later, the mark of what they did all those centuries ago is still permeating through our society today. The science, the technology. You know, you go, for example, to the United Nations on human rights. There are statements there that Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu said that have been immortalized. A man in a desert who says a message to people whose words, their words now, not even his words. How can you enslave a man that was born free? Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu said this. Now the human, it's used in the United Nations as something that is regarded even by Western academics. A Khalif, not even the Prophet Muhammad, who's recognized as number one influential in the world by Western academics. He's recognized as 52 or 52 most influential human being that ever existed on earth. What transformed a people, nomadic, living a medieval life, What transformed them? And this is something that, you know, as a rational human being, to just argue that some good people would have accepted him and they would have that would have transformed the whole nation, and within a century he would have reached Spain to China.
He implied there was pockets of people. One second,
hold on now.
Because you're in
No, I'm talking.
His implication wasn't that.
It's a worldwide religion. Paganism doesn't work. The Greek gods don't work, the Roman gods don't work, the Egyptian gods don't work, all these local gods, even Hindu gods, don't work worldwide. One God works worldwide. This is why the Roman Empire took up Christianity. It just worked better than the pagan religions. So Islam is sort of an improvement on Christianity, which don't have the Trinity. That's the reason it became successful, is it works better than paganism.
Do you have any historical evidence to support your claim? Because I have some that goes counters your claim completely.
See what he's claiming, you see, there were pockets of people in Mecca already waiting to throw paganism away.
Yes. Because
right. So what evidence do you have for that?
It starts with the Christians there.
No. What evidence do you have?
Because people look good. I look at people.
I'm interested in your opinion.
You want me to think everybody is the same.
I'm not interested in your subjective emotional opinion. I'm not interested in your emotional opinion, mate.
Okay, hold on a second.
I'm interested in facts here, yeah? Is there any evidence you have? One second, Abbas. Is there any evidence you have that supports your claim that there were people living in Mecca who were waiting to throw idols away? Do you have any evidence for that?
No.
So it's just your opinion?
I have evidence to counter your claim, actually. I'll show you evidence that counters your claim. You have no evidence, but I have evidence that counters your claim. Were there Jews and Unitarians that lived in Mecca and in Medina?
I don't know about Mecca.
Medina, yes. Why did all the Arabs not throw the pagans away and accept Judaism?
Because Jews don't accept people. Judaism has never brought people in.
Hold on a second. But you said that they were already susceptible to throwing.
But Jews don't want to know them.
But that's not the point, though.
Jews are their own people. They don't want other people coming in.
That's not the point, though. The point here is this: that if they were keen to throw away these idols, they have an example. They have an example. They have an example. They have an example. Look, let me explain to you what convinced them, because obviously we're running around in circles. You're coming up with reasoning that you feel is strong. Yet you have no evidence for it, and in fact there is a lot of evidence that counters what you're saying. Now, what was it that convinced them? I'll explain to you what convinced them. When the Quran is revealed, and the Prophet starts to give the Quran to the people through his words, immediately the people recognized these were words they never heard before. Hold on a second. I'm giving you reasons why they were convinced. Because without miracles, everything fizzles away and dies. Nothing survives. Unless you can show people something tangible, you might get a bunch of people, their kids won't follow you. Certainly your grandkids won't follow you. There has to be something. That has to be so convincing.
Oh no, I might be going back a little bit. Sorry, forgive me. Is your premise that Muhammad, peace and peace be upon him, lied about this revelation and all of this? Yeah. Is that your premise? That he lied?
He made it up like everybody else.
He made it up. So basically,
he makes it up.
So basically, this is a man who is married to the richest woman in Mecca, has status in the city because his family run Mecca, right? And he made it up because what?
Well,
sorry to interrupt you. I'm just trying to understand this.
What?
It's a reasonable question.
Why did he make it up?
He was going into the caves, like.
No, why did he make it up? Because going to the cave is irrelevant if you listen. Going to the cave is irrelevant if he made it up.
Okay, first of all, his wife's cousin.
Khadija.
But if he made it up.
Christian.
The scribe you're talking about.
That's just a red herring, mate.
No, hold on. He would know about Christianity.
Okay. So,
okay.
So he knows about Christianity.
Like all people, he has a soul. He wants to believe the truth.
Right. He knows about Christianity. No. You're saying he knows about Christianity. Yeah. Based on his wife's cousin Waraka, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And because of that, he decides that he wants to become a Christian, basically.
Well, what can happen next is...
No. I'm just a Unitarian anyway.
So this is your... One second. This is your So this is your subjective opinion. Continue.
There are lots of people in this world, I bet so, who hear voices in their head.
So he heard voices.
People do that. That's a natural...
Right. Now, if you hear voices, Right, this is where your confusion comes now. Now, because there's two things going on here. If he lied, that means he made the story up, all right? If he's hearing voices, that means he's confused and deceived into thinking something is something which it isn't. Right. So if you're hearing voices, if you're hearing voices, then it's not intent, is it? No, it's an illness. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. If you're wait a second. Yeah. You can't establish a principle and then mash it up because it doesn't make no sense. If a man is going to lie, he says, "I'm going to do this for this, this, and this reason." Right? He's not. Now, if the reason is what you said, he knew about Christianity from his wife's cousin Waraka, and that according to your emotional, subjective opinion, that from that encounter with Waraka, he wanted to become a Christian. Well, he wanted to believe, he wanted to do this. All right. And so, to do this endeavour...
No, hold on, next bit. I've got to explain this.
So this is his motive.
I need to explain this.
Let me explain. All right.
He's in the cave, playing like he normally does. He's hearing voices are coming to his head. Right. He knows a bit about Christianity, all that stuff. He thinks paganism is a scam, all that stuff. And here's these few words he hears about God's supposed to come down and tell him something. Gets that words. He runs back to his wife, who takes him to her cousin, and his cousin tells him he's a prophet.
Right.
So it's his cousin who tells him he's a prophet of God.
Right. Did he believe he was a prophet of God?
I don't know. He's confused.
No. Right. Confusion is all right. See, confusion. See, if someone's confused...
So this one is confused. Right. He's got this guy telling him he's now a prophet.
Alhamdulillah. So he believed he was a prophet, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Did he? No. Listen. Did he lie about the fact he was a prophet, or did he believe he was a prophet?
That's the way we don't know.
Well, no, you just claim he lied.
I think he's confused.
No, you claim he lied.
I think he's confused.
Are you taking
At
that
this moment, he's confused.
So you're taking lie back?
At this moment, he's confused.
So you're taking lie back?
No.
No, but you claim lie.
No, hold on. Later.
Oh, later now?
Now, when this guy dies, they pick up a few followers.
No. Sorry. You made a claim earlier.
3 years, and we made a revelation.
Listen. You made a claim.
Yeah.
He lied. Right? Now, if he lied... See, there's two things here, you see. If he lied, he made it up. No, listen. If he lied, he made it up. And he knew he was making it up, and he was doing it for a particular motive, for whatever reason that was. If he's confused, if he's deluded, that's not a lie, mate.
Right, it's all works both ways.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. So, no. So before you can continue... No. Hold on a second. You can't build on this false premise. Hold on a second. You can't. We need to... Look, brother, let's engage. Listen. See, look, hold on a second. Hold on. Brother, let's engage sensibly. Let's have a sensible, rational discussion.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
The human mind,
please.
Just
listen to me.
The human mind is not.
Can you just wait for 1 second? We have to. Let's engage properly. We have to deal with logic. Let's engage properly. Yeah. We have. Let's deal with one thing at a time. Let's deal with one thing at a time. I'm just posed a very. I think. Look, when we analyse something.
Yes, I know.
We look at the... Hold on a second. You taught history. Hold on a second. When we analyse something... You taught history, but you report it. We look...
It's subjective.
If there are 2 or 3 possibilities, then we should assess those possibilities. And if they hold up, then fair enough, you have an argument. If they don't hold up, then I would suggest, humbly, that let's be sensible, let's be honest, and let's put those to one side. Because otherwise, all we do is we just convince ourselves of our own beliefs and our own message, regardless of whether there's weight or evidence to support them. So I believe that Hamza's posed a very important question, which is that he goes to Waraka, the scribe, who through his... See, what you missed out was, through his own scriptures...
Yeah,
hold on a second. It's a very important point.
No, it's not.
Because hold on a second. I tell you, it's a very important point. Because from his own scriptures, he says that you are the one that we've been waiting for, and I wish I was younger to support you and help you, because they will turn you out. Your people will throw you out.
So that's why he believes he's now a prophet.
Sorry?
Because he's been told by this guy.
Right, but here's the question. Here's your problem now. Here's the problem.
He says now he believes he's a prophet.
Right. So he believes he's a prophet. Right. So if he believes he's a prophet, he's sincere in his claim.
Yeah.
So he's not a liar.
But that is the problem. He's going to get his messages of God, his words of God.
No.
They're not coming.
No. When you lie about something, it means you know what you're saying is not true.
Yeah.
But what you've just said now and agreed to is that he believed what he's saying was true.
I think he's confused about whether
he believed it was true. And if you're saying something, 1 second, if you say something that you believe is true, that's the antithesis of a liar.
Right.
So you no. But here's what we got to understand. Here's what we got to understand. You made the claim he was a liar, and then you agreed to the premise that he was truthful.
No.
So now you have a problem. We're going to pray.
Hold on. Now here's the problem. He has a problem.
I'm going to go pray. Forgive me.
He now has a problem. He's been told his prophets.
Well, never mind. Sorry.
He's picked up the key believers. Saying he's nephew, that's what his wife. The message aren't really coming down. Because he's just his head.
You don't like to the conversation.
Stuff so it's stuff.
You don't like to this conversation.
But when this hospital dies, God only decided 3 years for no revelations.
So you have a problem with your...
You
have a problem.
3 years and no revelations.
No, there was a revelation for 3 years. I think there were revelations for 3 years. However, my point to you is this, though. You have a problem, fundamentally.
Yes,
look, I'll let you speak. I'll let you speak. Let me just come back to you now. You have a problem. You have a problem. I'll tell you what the problem is this. There are 2 scenarios here. Number 1, he's a liar. He made it up. Number 2, he's delusional. He has a mental problem. One is that he's deliberately defrauded people in believing something. The other one, that he's deluded, he's mentally unstable. Of course, the third one, hold on a second. Of course, the third one could be that he is indeed the prophet.
The fourth one could be, he starts off deluded, and when he finds out, he has these followers, they weren't expecting something from him, he's not delivering, he's trapped. He's trapped.
So he's deluded and lying.
No, he's trapped, but he starts to lie, he starts to make it up.
So deluded and lying, right?
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of the 2.
Yeah.
But there are 3 main scenarios here. One is lying, one is deluded, through some mental instability, and the other one that he is the prophet of God. Now, for every cause, there has to be an effect. Of course. The cause of a liar, there has to be a certain effect of that lying. What I've explained to you and what I can explain to you does not fit with that at all. The words of a delusional person who says things thinking it's true, he's going to say all sorts of nonsense that will be uncovered even at that time, let alone 14 centuries down the road, right? Now hold on a second. That doesn't fit there either. And that's why I believe that the third scenario, that he was the prophet of God, because of the evidences, some of which I've shown you, some of which I haven't, to me convinced me that he was the messenger of God. Now, if you're a liar, now hold on a second. I explained to you about the grammatical constructs found by Raymond Farin. Hold on a second. Let's not jump the gun. Who is so convinced by those structures and the complexity of those structures that he believes that it was impossible to have done in that way. Hold on a second. Let me just finish. Those are not the words of a liar or the words of a delusional person, because that would not happen. That would not happen. So, and that is where the problem lies.
If his words were that good, he would be able to convince other mathematicians, other statisticians.
There were people who saw the prophet.
He did not.
There were people who saw the prophet of Allah, and they fought him to kill him, even though they were convinced that he was the prophet of God.
How do you know?
Because we have the story of Abu Lahab.
Hold
on a second. Abu Lahab, the story is in the Quran.
Exactly.
Nobody say look. No, but what you have to look. An intelligent man would say that when something is revealed to the people about a companion, if that companion did not exist, wouldn't we have a historical record of people saying, this guy didn't even exist? What are you talking about, Abu Lahab? There was no Abu Lahab.
Maybe there was, but doesn't mean the story about him too.
My point to you is this, though, that it was revealed in the Quran 8 years before he died, he won't accept Islam. Hold on a second.
It's a stupid story.
Look, my point to you is this. My point to you is this.
That's not evidence.
If something does not exist while it's revealed, we have a historical record dating back of every aspect of the Prophet's life. It would have been very easy for people to have said, well, I don't believe the Quran because this Abu Lahab does not even exist. Who's he talking about?
I'm not saying he doesn't exist.
Okay.
I said he exists.
The fact that he wants...
I said he didn't convert to Islam.
Right.
He's not going to convert to Islam. He's not to Islam.
And my point to you is that, and somebody not converting or converting is not necessarily a proof.
Right. It's weak.
But you're saying that people are not convinced today. Just because you're not convinced doesn't mean it's not true, does it? You might not have looked at the evidence. You might not have spoken to a scholar about Islam. You may not know anything about Islam. All you see is ISIS or some crazy fanatic doing something crazy, and your perception may be that about Islam. I don't expect.
So how do you prove that Islam is true then?
I believe. No, I didn't say that. That wasn't my point. My point is that there's a multifaceted approach to proving the Quran. One of them is the grammatical constructs of the Quran, that they cannot be explained. And I'm talking about.
Can I just interject and say, providing a grammatical evidence is proof to a person who doesn't know Arabic and don't actually understand the richness of it. Yeah, it's not a great way of trying to convince somebody. Is there anything else that you can deliver to him or anyone else here that is accessible to all of us to actually come to that conclusion?
Don't trash the evidence because you don't understand the evidence. That's ignorant. No. I heard what you said.
You won't be able to
No. I heard what you said. But what does an intelligent, rational human being do?
So now
hold on a second. Let me finish.
To go and investigate
Let me finish.
Arabic.
Well, we investigate what phone to buy, and you don't want to investigate what might happen after you die. We investigate what camera to buy, what jeans are good, what trainers are good, what tires are good for my car. We investigate everything. And when it comes to the afterlife, well, I ain't got time.
Okay,
Your point is flawed.
No,
listen to me. Let me just finish my point.
I told you the Nordic religion is true.
Yes.
And it's true because there is grammatical evidence inside of the Nordic religion literature.
Yes.
Are you now going to go and investigate the Nordic?
Yes.
Have you ever done that for any other religion outside of Islam and the Abrahamic faith?
Yes, I have, yes.
Can you name some?
I've looked into Judaism, Christianity, into all sorts of religions.
Outside of the Abrahamic faith.
But they don't claim to be. I've looked at Hinduism.
Okay.
And it doesn't claim. Does it claim to be a grammatical miracle?
I'm asking you, have you studied the language?
Does it claim? If it doesn't claim it, why am I going to study it?
So you're saying that the Quran claims to be a grammatical miracle?
The Quran claims to be a miracle, yes.
Okay, but it doesn't claim to be a grammatical miracle. It's a claim that's utilized by Muslims.
Listen, the point is this. If I make a claim, you can trash my claim. But you have to provide evidence to trash it. Don't just trash it because you can't be bothered to go and investigate it.
Okay, so
that's foolish.
So
let me finish my point. My point here is, I'm quoting somebody who is a Western academic who studies Arabic grammar in detail, and without receiving the message of Islam from anybody, is convinced upon years of research that this grammatical construct could not have arisen through an oral transmission in the 7th century by a man in the desert. Hold on a second, and he's so convinced that he accepts Islam. Now, I've made a claim. Now, hold on a second. If you now say, well, I think that's rubbish, that's okay. You have every right to say that, but at least offer the intellectual respect and go and listen to what he has to say. What exactly is his claim? How does he say that it's a miracle? And then, by all means, if you're not convinced, then say it's rubbish.
Okay.
But to just trash it because it's in Arabic, so that now I have to go and investigate it. This is nonsense.
What I'm saying to investigate it. Lots of other mathematicians
should have, would have, could have, might have. It's not the answer.
What you're doing right now is appealing to authority. You're appealing to this particular authority that he knows his subject and so forth. Unfortunately, everybody here doesn't have his work to actually investigate, critique it, and come to their own conclusion by themselves. So I'm saying to you, just to help you in your actual dawah right now, appeal to everybody on something that they can all relate to.
How long have you been coming here?
I've been coming here for about 3-4 years.
3-4 years. years?
Yes.
Have you heard about this Raymond Farron ever before?
No, I have not.
He's been on many videos.
Yep, I haven't.
Many videos.
I haven't.
Now you have heard of him.
Okay.
You come here for 3 or 4 years. When you come next time, study what he has to say, and then critique it.
Okay, so
today we have
interested in critiquing
no, because
I'm simply saying to you,
why not?
It would be very effective.
Why not? Why not? No, but why not though?
Are you listening?
Yes,
it would be very effective if you provide an argument that we all can kind of relate to.
Yes.
Because I can bring up something right now, that is so far removed from you that you have no argument for it. You have no way of actually investigating or critiquing it. So I'm just trying to help you say, bring up something that we can all.
Thank you very much for your advice, and thank you very much for your help. But, however, with the caveat, I would say that detailed, deep subjects sometimes have very academic arguments. And to sort of say, give us a trivial little argument that we'll all be convinced by, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the arguments are very detailed, very academic in their nature. Okay. You're a clever man, you're literate.
That's right.
I've provided an argument.
Okay.
You come here for 3 years. When you come next time, you say, I'm not interested in critiquing his argument. I think that's intellectually dishonest.
But that's not my interest.
But that's my point, though. Your interest is to advise me of how to do dawah. Yeah. When I give you something that is no doubt academic, maybe somewhat complex, at least offer the intellectual respect to go away and have a look at it. As rational, honest, reasonable human beings, I believe that at least when somebody provides you with some evidence, at least look at the evidence. At least assess it for yourself. At least see, does this outweigh this argument or that argument?
I'm agreeing with you.
Because my friend,
because
the Quran says exactly the same thing.
Okay. So
if you speak the truth, provide your evidence.
Excellent.